after almost a week or so of all the crazy reaction to the Oscar nominations and the backlash towards one specific movie, after over a month since we had our last ceremony with the Golden Globes, we are finally getting into at least 3 award shows this weekend. The Critics' Choice Awards, after so many postponements, will finally happen this Friday, and what is the video subject today that will be taking place Saturday, both the Directors Guild and the Producers Guild of America Awards. Now, I already have done a Critics' Choice prediction video, so if you want to see that, it is on the channel. But in this specifically, unlike the Critics' Choice, where it's not going to really matter as much because, like the Golden Globes, I don't think any members of the Critics' Choice Association are Oscar voters, we are now going to legit get a little bit of glance of what could happen at the Oscars with members of the Producers Guild and the Directors Guild, that most of them that are Oscar voters will tell us something when it comes to those categories. And then, of course, next weekend will be the Writers Guild and the BAFTA Awards, and then the following weekend will be the Independent Spirit Awards and the Screen Actors Guild Awards, all the way up to March 2nd at the 97th Academy Awards. So it has been a little bit kind of off for a while because we still obviously do not have a clear frontrunner when it comes to some of the top tier categories here, to be precise. But I think everyone kind of pretty much knows about that, unless if you are somebody like, I don't know, that thinks that are the legit experts. No one is an expert, of course. So, and that's obviously what we're going to be doing today here with the guild prediction videos, to be precise. So, with that being said, let's get on already to our predictions with the Directors Guild first. I don't know which one's going to go first because it's odd that both ceremonies are taking place in the exact same day. I don't know what they're going to do. Are they going to just or unless they're going to be at the same theaters at the same time, I don't know, but it would be very interesting. But then again, it would make sense to have all 4 guilds be presented at the same award show, but then again, ineligibility issues always at the Writers Guild, as always. So we're going to obviously start up with the Directors Guild of America. I obviously, like the everything else, I'm not going to be, like Globes and Critics' Choice, I'm not going to be talking about television whatsoever here. It's just only going to be the movie sides, regardless, for any category. So starting up for Directors Guild, let's start up with documentary feature. And you would think at first glance, Daughters would have been the obvious go-to choice. But since it missed the Oscar nomination, now where do you go? And it's odd that all 5 of these were on the Oscar shortlist, but it is 3 that are on the shortlist with Porcelain War, Soundtrack to a Coup d'Etat, and Sugarcane. Now, as I said in my reaction, I regret not going with Porcelain War for Best Documentary Feature. If I did, I might have replaced it with probably either, I don't know which one, because I had Daughters and Dahomey over, obviously, Porcelain War and, no, I did have No Other Land. What was it? Black Box? Soundtrack to a Coup d'Etat. Because Black Box Diary is not here. Obviously, No Other Land didn't make it in the guilds, even though it's still our clear Oscar frontrunner. But the guilds are going to tell us probably maybe what's number 2 or number 3. Because No Other Land will definitely going to win at the BAFTAs and the Spirit Awards. Unless something happens, then it's like, okay, where are we going now? So because since it is the only movie that is in PGA, you would think I would go with Porcelain Wars, since it did, it is the only movie that is on the PGA lineup, and 20 Days in Mariupol did win this. But I feel like I might, I don't know if they would go back-to-back on the Russian-Ukrainian war documentaries. I'm not sure. Coup d'Etat, I heard, is just nothing but, montages and stuff like that. Unless if it is Daughters, I would not be surprised, but I think I'm gonna go... It's kind of hard, because, obviously, they don't have this on the awards expert app. I think because of the subject matter, I'm I think maybe because of the directing style, I'm guessing, even though I have not seen any of them, I'm gonna probably go with a random guess and say Julianne Brave, Nose Cop, and Emily Cassatt for Sugarcane. For first-time feature, now, it does felt like at first glance this would have been Pio Kabadia for All We Imagine Is Light, and I would not be surprised if she still wins this. But the fact that Nickel Boys did got Best Picture of the Oscars, I think this is going to be Ramel Ross regardless. Now, when it comes to the main featured film category, it's kind of a toss-up here between two, because you have Brady Corbet, who just won the Golden Globe, but the question is, how much of the industry that doesn't really care about what the people said did took to Emilia Pérez? Because Jacques Audiard is a threat to win at any of them. Because I still say this race is open until after BAFTA. Like, if one of these two take both DGA and BAFTA, it is over. I don't think Critics' Choice is not going to matter as much. So, but I think because, I feel like it makes more sense to go with him at the BAFTAs. I'm not going to say Jacques Audiard here. I'm going to go with the safer bet and say Brady Corbet for the Brutalist. It might be, like, I am still thinking of Audiard, because even though I don't know much, because the thing is, obviously, I know many people in the comments will be almost kind of bashing me for thinking of going with Emilia Pérez, but it could win almost anything, like, as a threat to potentially win. Like, specifically director is probably number 2, I would say. Audiard's probably number 2, but I think Corbet is probably going to take this one. I would still say it's open until BAFTA, though. So unless they go in a different direction, which, oh boy, if they give it to Edward Berger, that would be just hilarious. But I think I'm going to go with the safer bet, say Corbet. If it is Audiard, watch out. And now we come into the Producers Guild Awards, which will also be taking place on the same day. And obviously, like DGA and even with WGA, they only have 3 categories. I don't know when they're going to do a non-English category still. But for documentary feature, now the only one that is nominated here that is at the Oscars is Porcelain War. But I think since, obviously, if you remember last year, 20 Days in Mariupol, although it did almost swept everything, it didn't win the Producers Guild as it went to American Symphony. And since the Producers Guild goes more with a high-profile documentary, that's why I'm going to go with Superman, the Christopher Reeve story here. Because I feel like they gave this to American Symphony, they gave it to Apollo 11, they gave it to Won't You Be My Neighbor. So if you have a big populated subject matter, the Producers Guild is probably the better one to go with for the high-profile one. So I'm going to go with the obvious choice, that the one that did not make it in the Oscar shortlist, Superman. So for, and then we come into Best Animated Feature. So with Flow showing up here, that is a real big sign, because I was kind of surprised, because they don't usually like to recognize independent films. But I think it's, at the moment, a toss-up. I would say here between Inside Out 2 and The Wild Robot, because Producers Guild, I think, are more mainstream. Unless if Flow wins this, then there might be a bit of a changement. But Inside Out 2 is the highest-grossing animated film of all time. And if the industry cares more about the money, they would give it to that. But I think I'm going to give this to The Wild Robot to see what happens, because Critics' Choice is also happening on Friday. And ironically enough, the Annie Awards are going to happen as well the same day as both DGA and specifically PGA. So we get 3 award shows that will really kind of go into where Flow and The Wild Robot are going to be in this upcoming weekend. But we just know Wallace and Gromit is guaranteed going to win the BAFTA to jump into that race. And now we come into Best Picture. So they did win 8 out of 10 here when it came to the Oscars. So the question is Emilia Pérez unbeatable or not? Now, I still say that this is going to be kind of tough, because obviously we don't have a clear frontrunner. Because it is, like, you don't know what's going to win here for Picture. Because obviously the whole backlash with Emilia Pérez has gone a lot intense. But keep in mind, this could be one thing that a lot of people are overlooking. One aspect that why Emilia Pérez is doing so well in the award season is because Netflix is just heavily campaigning in the movie and almost feeling like it's the greatest thing they have ever seen. But apparently not the general public and even YouTube critics in general. It is very interesting, because I saw somebody in a comment in a post story, I believe from the awards contender, aka Brian Rowe, about a preview of what he would do with the Emilia Pérez Chaos video that he would release. Somebody compared, is Netflix trying to be like Miramax specifically? So, and that got me thinking, is Netflix trying to become the new Harvey Weinstein at the Oscars? Because They choose a movie that is not really generally loved by everybody, and it gets a buttload of nominations because it has a lot of Oscar baity things. And Emilia Pérez is the subject for that. And you can even go back to last year with Maestro. Maestro had a lot of Oscar baity things, and obviously it ended up becoming my least favorite of the picture nominees, because obviously the Academy loves Bradley Cooper, and it was a biopic about a famous musician, and Steven Spielberg was a producer on that. That's why Netflix went all in on Maestro and sent us something that was more acclaimed like May, December, or even Nimona on the animated side, to be precise. You can even argue about that with All Quiet on the Western Front, because it is a World War I non-English biopic. No, not a biopic, a World War I movie that is a non-English film, of course, and obviously it's an adaptation that the first adaptation won the Oscar for Best Picture for, and obviously you could have gone something like Glass Onion, A Knives Out Mystery, or Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, but they went all in on All Quiet, and they even kind of did that with The Power of the Dog, but even though they had The Lost Daughter and Tick, Tick, Boom as well, it's just like Emilia Pérez was probably the one they just think it's the best thing they have seen, or I don't know if the CEO said it or whatsoever, instead of going something that was legit acclaimed like Hitman, or since they're the U.S. or North American distributors of Wallace and Gromit: Vengeance Must Foul, they didn't care about neither of the two. Hitman probably would have been made a lot more sense critical-wise, but they just went with Emilia Pérez because it's a non-English film, it's a musical, it has a prominent director that has a film that was previously nominated Oscars. It's just like, that's one thing that's kind of overlooking why Emilia Pérez is doing so well nominations-wise, because of Netflix's heavy campaigning. But that said, I'm not going with him, the Producers Guild. I don't know how much in the industry is going to care for it. I'm going to go with The Brutalist as the safer bet. It could go to Conclave. It could go to Anora. Like, it even could go to Wicked. The Substance, I don't think so. But Wicked makes more sense at SAG, more so than here the Producers Guild, because I was thinking the SAG Ensemble Award is probably going to give us the bigger hint, but the problem is, I don't know when SAG final voting ends, but the ceremony is going to happen 5 days after the Oscar nominations final voting will occur. Oscars final voting, I meant, not nominations voting. That will end. So that kind of be a bit of a more of a question mark, but that will be more of a discussion when we get to those predictions 2 weeks from now. So with that being said, I'm going to go with the safer bet and say The Brutalist. If it goes on to win I think I did state it at Critics' Choice, or was that a Nora? I don't remember. I have it in the Awards Expert app. I think I did state in the safer bet and said The Brutalist, or I think I said Conclave, I'm guessing. I don't know what I went with. I'll have to look at myself in those predictions. So yeah, I think I'm going to go with the safer bet and say The Brutalist. But I don't feel like it is a true pitcher frontrunner. This could be a year where PGA can get it wrong. So, yeah. So with that said, I think that's kind of wraps up for those 6 awards, specifically 3 at DGA and 3 at PGA. But I think things will get a little bit more better, even though we have 3 more left for WGA next week. But then we'll get more serious talks with the BAFTAs on how many of the international voters would go effect with the Oscars.